Hello everyone, Draven Arts Productions here, and I got myself a package when Mom came back after a nice good breakfast with one of my aunts, and I am quite excited to open this because it is a literal item that I have been wanting to get for quite a long while, ever since my freaking birthday. And this is one of my birthday presents, which I have been waiting for months. Oh yeah. This item right here is the Thomas and Friends Tomy Plarail 2018 Edward. Yes, that Edward, after a couple of comments of wanting me to get this, I finally had this in the palm of my hands. Anyway, let's take a look at it. So you got the nice box display of Edward here, and then the nitrogen promo of Edward, and then Renaissance Thomas right there. Really nice box. And then the side here. And then the other side where it shows you the model. And then the bottom of the box. It also comes with a truck as well. And as you can see, this box was damaged. What a shame, but hey, what are you gonna do? And then of course you got the top here. I forgot to show you this. Anyway. And the back, there's the back itself of showing you of how to put the batteries in the engine, as they do for the other items that they do. But unfortunately on mine that I got this, it was so damaged. I mean, wow. Must have literally looks like they did not put a single bit of care when putting this to shipment. But oh well. It's nice to have Edward regardless, though. Alright, let's get Steady Eddie himself opened. Coming in for the unboxing. And we're going to do it fast. There we go. And out comes the box. Here are the instructions, which goes with every single Plarail engine. And it looks like this. Pretty standard, nothing too special. Alright, let's get Edward out in this skinny plastic bag. And there he is. Woo! Alright. Gotta get the styrofoam out of the way as well. And boom. There's Edward. And here is Edward in full glory. Let's take a look at him, shall we? Let's go over at the front of Edward first. So here is the front of Edward. And as you can see, Edward has a gorgeous CGI face. And I love that. It is one of the positives of this item. He looks so nice. And then, of course, the white, grayish running board, and then the 3 lamp irons, detailed buffers, and then the side right here. He looks pretty nice, and I don't even know about the 2 block things that they're on his model, and I don't know why that it was a thing like this. And then, of course, one of the gripes that people have with this model, and that is the wheel configuration. One of his leaning wheels are just literally blue plastic and not detailed, while the rest of his chassis is the same exact chassis as Gordon's. And this wasn't the first time where they screwed up Edward's wheel configuration. That honor goes to the Trackmaster Revolution / Motorized Edward, on which we'll get him and compare him later. So yeah, while he does have that nice running board, but on the other half, it is unfinished. It is one of the major downsides to the model. And then the back is plain, aside from the Ghislaine Thomas Limited. And then the other side is exactly the same. And then, of course, one of the boiler bands is just either placed like this or whatever, just so that they could place this new chassis motor into it. And I'm not gonna lie, it is kind of ugly, and I do wish that there's like a better way to make it better. But hey, at the very least, the safety valve and whistle is nice. And then here is the bottom of Edward. Tomy made in Thailand. So that is the front of Edward. Now onto his tender. I had nothing to say about the tender. It looks really nice, despite being like either a recolor of James or Gordon, but without the extra step ladder things that were seen on the original Edward, I think. So yeah, nothing to say about it, honestly, although the downside is always the lack of detail on the buffer beams. And here is the bottom of the chassis block. So yeah, that's the tender. Now onto the troublesome van, and this is my first actual Tomy troublesome van, which is kind of cool. And as you can see from it, it's all yellow. And of course, it has a yellow roof, of course, which makes it completely unfinished, and it should have had a black roof. But hey, it's a nice truck. And this is what the face of the troublesome van looks like. And I'm pretty sure that this face was taken from one of the BWBA trucks in the movie and the series. And I'm gonna be honest, I don't mind of how this troublesome van looks with that face. So yeah, that's the troublesome van. Alright, let's get on to the comparison between this Edward and this Edward. So we'll start off at the front first. And as you can see, the faces of these guys are completely different. And I honestly like this face better than this, even though it's fine. And of course, what I did onto my model is that I gave him the black dots to represent the rivets on what Edward looks like in season 23, if he'd given those details. And I also painted his running board white, his lamp irons black, and I also gave him a cardboard lamp, which it is slowly ripping a little bit. And I also give him a little bit of detail on the handrails. And of course, he was repainted a few years ago because I was pretty sloppy when painting the running boards white with washable paint. So now I have painted him either in a bright blue or a little bit of a darker blue by using the apple barrel paint that I use. And I also detailed the spokes around the wheels and redo the lining and all of that. But I didn't even do his whistle. So yeah, and as you can see, he does work, but over time, he is starting to get a little bit sluggish. I had this Edward for about 6 years now, since 2018. And over time, he is starting to get sluggish when pulling either freight cars or just being pretty slow to keep up. Alright, so I got Edward this little van that he is pulling, and he's going up to the spiral just to demonstrate of how slow that he's getting. So yeah, maybe a bit sluggish pulling one car, but he went there all right. Let's give him 2. All right, Edward is pulling a second car and going up to the same spiral, and he is still sluggish, as you can see. A little slow, but I think he's about to make it. And he makes it. And now I've given him a third car going up to the same spiral, and yeah, he just completely stops. As you can see, this Edward has been pretty sluggish to the point where pulling some cars on a spiral or a hill, he starts to slow down and then stops. And probably his motor and all of that just burnt out on me. So it is immediately apparent that I needed a new Edward to replace him. So yeah, anyway, here is the rest of the comparison. Obviously, the same wheel configuration that they've been doing for about 11 years, a few years, or nearly like decades, until like the 2022 Edward came along. So yeah, and then the backs and the sides and the bottom as well. So that's the comparison. Now onto the tenders, and of course nothing to say about them except that the tender is short while this one is long and all of that. And also on the Trackmaster Revolution Edward, I gave him a rectangle lining and detailed his buffers. And I also redid the red lining around his number 2 and redid the red lining, as you can see. And I also gave him the same detailed spoke treatment. So yeah, and I also switched the coupling for a Tomy / Trackmaster coupling. So yeah, I will give the tender some detail as well. Alright, so this will be the permanent Edward for now on for my remakes and videos, while this will be used as a crash double. So yeah, this Edward will no longer be used, but it will occasionally be used as a crash double. So yeah, not gonna repaint him to a custom or anything, just a crash double. Alright, I rambled on long enough. Let's get Edward a battery, shall we? And this is the battery that they have bought recently. So it is kind of perfect since this came from Amazon. Well, my parents bought this from Amazon, so yeah. Anyway. And he is a goer. Nice. Works pretty well. Before I give Edward a run, what are my final thoughts on the Plarail 2018 Edward? Well, I think that he is pretty good, but flawed. While Edward does look nice, like his CGI face and almost everything else, but the downside is the wheel configuration. But I will have to get used to it until I may be either old enough or maybe just try to make his accurate wheel configuration by following whatever type of stuff that I've been seeing on the internet. So this will take some confidence. So yeah. Anyway, on my rating scale for this Edward, I think I will have to give him probably, I don't know, probably a 6.4 out of 10. Probably a 6.4 out of 10. He is pretty good, but also pretty flawed. Alright, with all of the rambling out of the way, let's give Edward a run on this newly constructed layout that I made, shall we? And that was the run of the Thomas & Friends Tomy Plarail 2018 Edward. I hope you guys enjoy him. Make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and let me know what are your thoughts on 2018 Edward. Do you think that he is alright, or do you think that it is the worst revamped steam engine models that Plarail has made? Let me know in the comments. This is Dre Edwards signing off. I'll see you again soon.